What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, talk about big factors for the markets as we have Jerome Powell giving a speech, not to mention new news about the markets. But let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, for SPY, I just wanted to mention that we had this very, very nice looking bearish divergence that was developing. And SPY saw this push very close to all-time highs. But instead of breaking through them, we saw this big rejection, which is one of the things we talked about yesterday. And as a result, we saw this nice red day for SPY, the QQQ, ES, the futures, and the list goes on. But this does not necessarily mean we're going to crash tomorrow. It does not guarantee that. Why do I say that? Because SPY has not necessarily lost critical support. SPY is still holding 556. If we lose that tomorrow, there's going to be more downside coming. Yes. If we hold that, there could be a rebound attempt. So I'm going to give you guys more information about what's going to affect this and some very important things to watch for. So please note tomorrow it's going to be Friday, August 23rd, 2024. 30 minutes after the market opens at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. When Jerome Powell opens his mouth, the market tends to go bananas. The market tends to go crazy. And it just notes that I can't really predict everything Jerome Powell is going to say. That's something that's very difficult, and I can't make promises about anything. But I can tell you this: I will give you guys my best shot at trying to predict what is likely to happen, especially as he has been saying some very common things for the last couple of meetings, last couple of times he spoke. So what's happening tomorrow? 30 minutes after market opens, we have Jerome Powell giving his speech at 10 o'clock a.m., and we'll see what that leads to. Now, when he speaks, just notes that he'll be at Jackson Hole, which is in Wyoming. When he opens his mouth, he'll be talking about possibly interest rates, possibly what the Fed could be doing. And if he gives us, any insights on if we're going to get a 25 or 50 basis point cuts or anything like that, if he talks about cuts, the market's going to make a very, very big move. If he confirms cuts are coming, the market's going to push upwards tomorrow, and we'll see if the move lasts. It could still get a rejection afterwards. If he's very, very ambiguous, doesn't give us much information, the market could still get a rug pull. It might not help the market much. So it all depends on what this guy says. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Right now, the market thinks there's a 75% chance we get a 25 basis point cut and a 25% chance we get a 50 basis point one. We'll see which one we end up getting. Right now, it's looking like we're going to get a 25 basis point cut, and the market thinks there's a 100% chance we get some kind of cut, whether it's 25 or 50 basis points. We'll just have to wait and see. The next time we have FOMC is going to be on September 18th. So Jerome Powell may give us some insights about that. Now, I also want to mention that right now the market is neutral. We were greedy. Now we're getting back to the neutral level, and things are really, really shifting. Momentum was extremely greedy. Now it's just greedy. And also, we're starting to see that the put and call option positioning is currently at greed. It is starting to stagnate right over here. So this means that we might see a big shift soon. If it reverses directions, this could be a sign the market is turning more bearish and things are shifting. Now, the VIX is currently at neutral. It's trying to break past this 50 daily moving average. We'll be watching to see what the move is, at least from here. Now, for other factors about the markets, I just want to mention that we have 551 as max pain. If SPY loses 556 and fails to hold that tomorrow, I think 553 is coming in 551. That's going to be our max pain. So we have to be very careful if we end up losing key support. For earnings, just real quick before I start talking about the charts, for today, after the market closed, we had Kava, not to mention Ross. For Kava, they did relatively well, beating on EPS and revenue, and also they had good guidance, which is why the share price is up. That's why they're up like almost 10% right now. And then for Ross actually beat on EPS and revenue, but their Q4 guidance was not very good. That was below expectations, but they managed to offset that by giving us the 2024 guidance, which was above expectations. So their overall guidance for the year is what saved the share price. That's why the share price is up. And it's good to see Ross doing well for the entire year. That's why we ended up seeing a nice bounce in the share price. Anyways, that's it for my analysis. Now I'm just going to briefly talk about the markets. What is likely going to happen? So, like I said earlier, I am not a fortune teller. I don't know what Jerome Powell is going to say, so I can't make promises. I'm just going to focus on levels, and I'll give you guys my prediction of what I think will likely happen. So, the first thing worth mentioning is if the market does try to rebound with Jerome Powell's speech, watch 558 and 560 as resistance levels. If SPY breaks, they were going up to 562 to retest the highs. If we lose 556, that's going to be a bad sign. If we hold below that for an extended period of time, that's going to be a signal for more downside. We'll be looking at 553.25 as one of our supports, not to mention the 550 area. So what do I think is going to happen? What is my prediction? In my personal opinion, okay, I think what's going to likely happen is Jerome Powell, he is known for being very optimistic lately. He keeps on saying things are good, the economy is doing well and blah, blah, blah. If he gives some kind of speech like that, the market may get an initial bounce, and we could see an attempt to rebound temporarily, but the odds favor the move is going to likely fail and we're going to be looking for more downside. I think that's more probable in my personal opinion. I'm not promising it, guys. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what Jerome Powell is going to say, but I can tell you this. Um, that's very probable looking at the history of when he has spoken for the last couple of meetings. The market did like to pump upon his words, upon his information about how the economy is doing fine. That's just what I'm trying to say. So, what do I see for this? Please note that for SPY on the daily, we look bearish. We have these big gaps to fill. We have this gap down to the 540s, another gap in the 530s. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing him trying to pump things a little bit, so then we start dipping. But if we lose 556 tomorrow, that's your trigger that we're going to be dropping harder to the downside. If 556 fails us, there's going to be a big dip coming, guys. 553, 551, and then even the 540s. If we hold above it, we could rebound a little bit, and then we'll see if the move ends up failing or not. So watch your levels very carefully. I suspect what's going to happen is we rebound a little bit in the morning. We could retest 558 or so, then reject and start tipping lower. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing like 553 or so. But that's my prediction, guys. I could be wrong. I think we may rebound and thanks to Jerome Powell, then dump. And we'll see how things go. Always be prepared by watching your levels and just notes that whatever he says will cause a big move. But I do suspect more downside is likely coming for the markets and we have some gaps to fill. I think we will eventually see a little corrective phase. For Nvidia has this double top like structure. And just notice that on the 4-hour time frame, we got this nice pump all the way up to about that 130 area, the same level I called out. But instead of breaking through that, we actually saw a big rejection. We lost 126, taking us all the way down to the 122s. So for tomorrow, look at resistance at 124.7, 126.5, and 128. If we break those levels, we could be looking for the high to be tested. If we lose 122, we're dipping down to 120 and 116. My guts tells me tomorrow we're going to rebound a little bit, retest 126 or so, maybe a little bit higher. Then there might be a rejection coming. There might be a little rejection off our resistance. This could be forming a nice double top leg structure, and there's going to be a risk of downside. So be very, very mindful of this on Nvidia. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin's declining right now. We're showing some weakness. Look at 60,000 as our support, and then 59,700 as our next support below that. And then resistance is going to be around 60,800. We're looking more bearish right now as we're making lower highs. We could try to rebound one more time to retest our 200 EMA thanks to Powell and start dipping. But I do see a risk of this potentially coming down as Bitcoin's on a bit of a downtrend. When you look at the overall structure of Bitcoin, it's been downtrending for quite some time. So I see a risk of this dipping. It may pop thanks to Powell and start dipping. So be very mindful of that. For ES, I just want to say that we have resistance around this 56.14 area. We have support at 55.59. My gut tells me that if we don't hold the 55.80 area, there's going to be a big drop coming, by the way, just like that of SPY, and we'll be testing our 50 EMA. And I suspect we might be coming back down to the 50 EMA, this like 55.59 area. We might rebound first. Might be a little rebound attempt to the 56 13, 56.25 area around there. And then there might be a rejection after that, depending on what Jerome Powell says. But I suspect that's the most likely possibility. For Tesla, I see potentially the same thing. So Tesla has a bearish looking structure. My concern about Tesla is the fact that we lost this support right here. We had this key trend line right here, which was acting as support for the last couple of weeks. Let me show you. Look at how Tesla's been uptrending. So see this big white line? Tesla's been bouncing off this. We bounced, and then today we broke through it. So if we close below this trend line 2 times in a row, today we got the first strike. Tomorrow's going to be the second one. If we do close below that, that's going to be a bad sign for Tesla. So look at resistance at 212. If Tesla breaks that, we're going back up to the trend line in this 214 area. If that breaks, we're going up to 217. If we lose 212, we're going to be dipping down to 208, then eventually low levels like 205 and 202. My guts tells me Tesla might rebound tomorrow, maybe try to retest the trend line in the 214, 215 area. If we reject off the trend line, we could be dipping lower. And if we break through it, we could rebound. My gut tells me we're going to reject. I have a feeling that this imbalance down here is going to fill, taking us down to 202. Basically, this imbalance is acting as a magnet. This is going to drag Tesla down. We might rebound a bit, then start dipping. So I favor that a little bit more. If you look at Tesla, especially on the daily time frame, okay, we look very bearish right now. We look very, very weak. We got a big rejection. Could rebound, then continue lower, and I suspect that's the most likely possibility. For NQ, we look a little bit more bearish, but then when you look at the 4-hour time frame, We have resistance around 19,750, and then we have support at 19,500. We're kind of stuck in between. I suspect we're going to rebound a bit to the 19,700s, then reject and start dipping all the way down to about 19,500 and eventually 19,400. So we may pop and then drop and start dipping. We have a bearish divergence forming. I think that this is favoring downside. I think we're going to be making our way down to at least 19,500. So look for a rebound, then a rejection. We'll see how things go, but I suspect that that's the most likely possibility for NQ. For the QQQ, like I said about SPY, we have not lost critical support yet. We have been struggling around 475, but 473 is critical support. If we lose that, then this thing will be falling, in my opinion, down to about 469 and 467 at least. We'll be filling some gaps as well. So I think we also have resistance at 476 and then 479 to 480, then 481. I suspect we're going to rebound a little bit, very close to 476, if not 478, then see a big rejection and a move lower as we're looking very, very weak. Look for a little rebound attempt. We'll see how big the rebound is, and then there might be a big rejection after that. So we'll see how high we go. So watch for that very carefully. I do suspect that's the most likely possibility. For Aapl has basically been in a very, very critical place. We have 226 as resistance and 223.8 as our support. If we lose 223.8, we're going to be dipping down to 222.5. And I see a risk of this potentially dipping even lower. So Aapl to me is looking a little bit more bearish, especially after this trend is kind of rejecting. So I wouldn't be surprised if we rebound possibly from like a right shoulder and then start dipping off this head and shoulders. So I suspect that we might be looking for 225 tomorrow, maybe the 226s. And then there could be a rejection back down to 223. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. That's it for the main five. Let's talk about the others real quick. Palantir has a double top leg structure that is developing right over here. If we lose 32, we're going to be dipping down to 31.3, followed by 30.7. If we break to the upside, look at 32.5 as resistance. If that breaks, we're going up to 33. My suspicion is that we have a double top and the top is in. This is going to pop a bit, then start dipping down to about the 30s, all the way down to 30.7. That's what I think is going to happen. I could be wrong. It depends on Jerome Powell's speech, but that's the most likely possibility. Supermicro has a nice double top leg structure, so it's looking more bearish because of that. This imbalance down here would take us all the way down to about the 580s. Look at resistance at 610. If we go a little higher, we could even get to 620. Break that, and our next target is going to be up to about 640. My guts tells me we go up a little higher to the 610s, and a little bit above that. Then we start dipping down to about the 580s soon. I think there might be a double top rejection. I favor that a little bit more on Supermicro. Rivian, not looking too good, and this is exactly what I've been saying for the last couple of days. We had this bearish wedge that was forming on Rivian. We got to get back above 13.2 to turn back up, but instead we failed at the very end of this wedge, and our target is going to be down to about 12.5. I suspect tomorrow we're going to be dipping lower, lower to the 12.5 area, so we look more bearish. So I see some more downside potential. For SoFi, we have 7.27 to 7.25 around that area as our resistance. Then we have 7.4 above that and 7.5. I suspect what's going to likely happen is we might dip more. And I think we might be getting very, very close to this yellow trend line. Let me change the color of the trend line so it's easier to like distinguish. Let's make this like orange. Actually, maybe not orange. Maybe I'll make this white instead. So with this trend line developing right here, this is going to be our key support right here. We'll see if this holds or not. I suspect we're going to be testing this on SoFi. Maybe we pop and drop tomorrow or not, but then we might be making our way down to the low sevens. And that's going to be this test of this trend line. We'll see if we bounce off this or not to form a cup and handle. But we still look more bearish. It might dip a little bit more for the short term. For the IWM Russell 2000, it's very simple to play this. So look at this big white trend line. Just like Tesla, we have this trend line acting as our support. We're barely testing that right now. We have 213 as key support and 216 as resistance. If we lose 213, we'll be tipping all the way down to the 211 area, followed by 210. And if that fails, we're coming all the way down to this imbalance towards 207. With the double top bearish divergence, I suspect that downside might be imminent, but we need to lose this white trend line for confirmation. We haven't lost the Q trend line yet, so I can't turn to a big bear quite yet on this. We're still holding support right now. The daily looks more bearish. It indeed does look more bearish to me, but there's also this gap below here at 208. And also, we haven't lost the support yet, so I can't turn to a big bear. So I suspect what's going to happen is we might rebound a little bit tomorrow, get close to about the 215s, and we'll see if we get a rejection off the double top. If the top holds from today, this will likely start dipping lower. Watch and see if that ends up being the case. For AMD, we're looking more bearish. We had this high right here, came down, made a lower high. Now we're below our key EMA. If we don't hold above 150, we're going down to 148. If we break past 152.8, look for a bounce for 155. My gut is telling me that this might continue to dip. We had a high here, came down, made a lower high, came down. We may end up making a lower high all the way down to the 155 area, then continue to dip all the way down to the 148 zone. So I suspect we may continue to downtrend. There might be more downside coming. For ARM, we're just completely range bound still. We have key support at 128.5, and now we're testing this resistance. We have support at 130, and then our resistance is going to be around 132. I think we're just going to be range bound for now, unless we lose 128.5, then we start dipping. This could be forming a head and shoulders, so there is a risk of it losing 128 if that's the case. There's going to be a big dip on ARM, so I suspect that's very, very probable. For Coinbase, we rejected off this key level. We're looking at resistance at this 202 area and support at 197. If 197 fails us, we're going down to 192. There is going to be a risk of this dipping lower looking at this trend. So we had this high at 210. We came short of reaching that target today, and we're continuing to downtrend. This might start dipping lower to 197 if we fail to reclaim 200. Tomorrow we might rebound to 202, then reject, so watch for that very carefully. For Amazon, I'm not too optimistic about this because of the fact that we lost the trend line. See this big trend line? We're riding this. We just rejected off of that. Our next support is currently around 175. We have support to watch for at 175 and resistance around 177. I suspect what's going to happen is Amazon might rebound to 179. Maybe Jerome Powell causes a little pop. Then we might reject and start coming down to 175, then eventually lower levels, such as the 172 area. So if we lose 175, 172 is coming. I suspect we pop a bit, and then we start dipping all the way down to 175, if not 172, if that fails. For Meta, we have a double top bearish divergence like structure. If we don't reclaim 540, we're going to likely start dipping down to about 530. If that fails us, our next target is going to be 524, then eventually 520. I suspect that off the bearish divergence, this will reject. We pop a bit and start dipping back down. I think that this could be forming a double top for 524 is the most likely possibility. For Microsoft, we're looking a little bit more bearish. We could try to retest these EMAs between 417 and 419 tomorrow. And if we reject and don't hold above 419, we are at risk of dipping down here towards 408 in my personal opinion. So I do see some downside potential in Microsoft. We could rebound a bit thanks to Powell and then continue to dip lower. So we'll see what ends up happening. For Google, we're looking more bearish. Look at this 166 area is our resistance. If it rejects here, we'll be tipping all the way down towards 164. And there is a risk of some downside in my personal opinion. If 164 fails, this imbalance will take us down to 163. I suspect we may pop and then drop and then continue lower. For other tickers out there, I just want to mention that we're also going to be looking at like GameStop and a few others. Just real quick, GameStop is just trading sideways. I do see some downside potential right here. We could be dipping down to 22 if that fails us. We're dipping all the way down to the 21.5 area. We look more bearish. AMC is losing the 200 EMA at 4.96. We're at risk of dipping all the way down to about 4.8. For just four more, DJT was trying to rebound only to get a big rejection. We need to reclaim 24.5 to turn back up. Otherwise, it's at risk of dipping down to its lows again in the 21s. So it still looks more bearish again. The VIX is trying to break out. We're going to be testing a tough resistance at 17.86. If we break the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame, our next target is going to be 18.35 or higher. And the VIX is looking more bullish, but watch this tough resistance. This is telling us that the market's at tough support, so we'll see what kind of reaction we get depending on Jerome Powell's speech. If Powell causes a big dip, this may break out past resistance, and that's going to be a sign the market is going to continue to fall. For the 10-year Treasury yield, we're still kind of flat. It depends on what Jerome Powell says, so we'll have to wait on that. And the dollar index is trying to break out here. Look at 101.5 as resistance. If this breaks, we're going up to about 101.8, so give this some time. Will this bounce based off Jerome Powell's speech? We just have to wait and see. So basically, in a nutshell, everything depends on what Jerome Powell says. The market has not lost key support yet. If we lose 556 on SPY, for instance, and 473 on the QQQ, there is a risk of the market dipping, and that could be like when the shorts are going to have a bigger edge. But if we hold above that tomorrow morning, and then Jerome Powell gives a speech and we continue to hold, we could see a little rebound attempt. We'll see if it's what that leads to, but there is a risk of the rebound failing. I just want to say that based on technicals, there is a risk of that happening. We rebound a bit and just see a rejection and continue lower. So we'll see how things go. With Jerome Powell's speech, we'll see what the guy has to say. Like I said before, I can't predict exactly what he's going to say. I could just give you guys my best assessments, my best estimation. So just remain patient nonetheless and do what you guys have to do. I want to thank you all so much for listening. Please have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. I'll see you guys tomorrow before the market opens, and I'll talk about what's happening with Powell's speech, and we'll see how things go. Thank you for listening, and peace out.